guys, this is Ingvar. And while the game between Carlsen and Jones got most of the headlines from round 8, there was also a huge clash between Anish Giri with white and Mamedyarov with black. Now before this round, Mamedyarov was leading with a full point after racking up 3 wins in a row. This man's hot. A man's not hot. Aratatata. Big Shaq. Look it up. I'll leave a link in the description so you know what I'm rambling about. But let's go on to the game. Giri had white, Mamedyarov black. And this was positionally a very clean and beautiful game. Let's see. C4, C5, symmetrical English. If memory doesn't fail me, that's what Shaq also played against Adiban 2 rounds before. Knight F3, Knight C6, Knight into C3. Adiban played D4, but Giri went with Knight to C3. Mamedyarov decides to fianchetto his bishop, and now E3 by white. So he wants to play D4 but take with a pawn. So he's sort of dictating what kind of structure he wants. After Knight F6, white plays at D4. It's very important to play Knight F6 and not Bishop D7, because you need to be able to answer D4 with D5, otherwise you just have a bad position. Your knight will be pushed around. It's not good. So D5 must be played here. After takes, queen into B3. This forces the issue. Black must either take on C3, strengthening white's center, or play E6. Mamedyarov went with E6. Bishop B5, and while Giri plays Bishop B5, I apologize for the background noise. There's a huge wind outside in Iceland. It can get windy during the winter, so I hope you don't hear it too much. But Mamedyarov didn't mind the wind. He played Bishop G7. Both sides castled, and now white gives up the bishop pair, but he damages black's structure. So we've seen this in a ton of games. Sort of imbalance, 2 bishops, but usually when the other side gives up the bishop pair, it's to inflict the other side with some weak pawns. Rook E1 immediately strengthens white's grips on E5, and it's important that white has a grip on E5 and C5. So he wants to contain these squares, maybe put a knight there, and what that will do, it will accentuate that this bishop can't really participate in the game. At the moment it's a bad bishop. That can change. Here Mamedyarov played queen to D6. There was a previous game by Tomaszewski with white against Alexiev where black played queen B6, and that looks a little bit more logical, but I'm not gonna criticize too much a player of Mamedyarov's stature. He played queen D6. He had his own ideas. Knight E4 hits the queen. After queen B4, the white queen drops back to C2. It makes no sense to take on B4, give the knight a good square. We'd rather go to C2. The queen is nice there. We will regain the time lost with A3. So all in all, it looks like a very solid position for white. A5 by black. And now A3. Actually, a natural question here is, why didn't black take on D4? For some it might look like a free pawn, but when you have fianchettoed, it's very important that this bishop is such an important piece. You have the pawns on light squares, and if this piece is exchanged, your black square will be very weak. White would gladly take on D4. First he would play A3, because it's a free tempo. A3 seems like a useful move, covering any knight B4 moves. So queen has to move, and then we take on D4. Bishop can come to H6, and this is already very difficult for black. Let's say Rook D8, Rook 8 D1 hitting the queen, and if the queen goes to B6, there's even Rook takes D5, and this accentuates the point. The black squares are critically weak if you give up the black squared bishop. So when you fianchetto a bishop, be very careful about giving up that bishop for only a pawn. It's usually not worth it. I'm sure that Mamedyarov didn't even consider this. He even played a5. Now a3. The queen has to drop back. And now knight c5. We mentioned this earlier. It's sort of alpha zero play. We're playing against the pieces. This bishop can't really get into an active square, get into the game. So that's the main feature of the game. Rook e8, knight e5. Very nice knights, and if white can control these squares, the black squares, this bishop will remain bad and white will have a better position. So Mamedyarov tries to take one of the knights away with f6. But every pawn move leaves a weakness. For now, it looks okay. Knight c4, hitting the queen, and bishop d2. So, just connecting the rooks. The bishop is eyeing a5. Logical and useful move. But what to do with black? That's a bit more difficult. Mamedyarov, we saw in the game against Adiban and other games, he likes to take chances. He doesn't like to wait, so he breaks with e5, trying to get some play. He wants this bishop into the game. Okay, white takes on e5. Black took back. Perhaps he can think about bishop f5 as well. That's logical, but he took on e5. And perhaps keeping bishop f5 for later. But here Giri moved his queen a4. So this preemptively gets out of any bishop f5 ideas. But also it's eyeing the a5 pawn, which is quite weak at the moment. Black kicked the queen with knight b6. White gladly took on b6. And now with the knight hit, he protected the knight with a check. Queen to c4. And now we see this play just resembles alpha zero. Protecting the knight, this is a great knight because it covers so many squares that the bishop can go to. Bishop c3. Another positional move, protecting this pawn. The bishop is excellent here, eyeing the e5 pawn. And all the white pieces work quite well together here. What to do? Black went bishop to f5. Okay, finally this guy is coming out. Or is it? Well, Giri had other ideas. And when you play a good, clean, strategical game, sometimes you have to take care of these little tactics here and there. And with this move g4, he does that. It's a positional move in a sense, because it's playing against the bishop. The bishop must move back. But it's a cool move because it's anti-positional. You're weakening your king side, but black can't really take advantage of it. So it's more important that you're playing against the black piece, restricting it, making it move back, than the weakness. And the detail here is, of course, that bishop takes g4. White will not take with the queen, because then the knight on c5 will hang, but he will flick in knight a4, hitting the queen. And unfortunately, the rules of chess do not allow the queen to reach any of these squares, which would cover the bishop. And therefore the bishop is lost wherever the queen goes to. Queen takes g4, white wins a piece. So after g4, the bishop must go back to c8. So this is already an accomplishment by white. Now I played rook e4. I mean, the rook could really go like to e3 or whatever, but it just looks good on e4. It's a blockading square. You're playing against this pawn. If this pawn can't move, this bishop is dead. Maybe we'll double, but most importantly, this guy remains dead because of this pawn on g4 and the knight on c5, which is a beautiful piece. The piece of the game, you know. We can give the white knight a prize. Queen b5, rook a to e1. Of course, you don't take on b5 because that straightens out black's pawn structure. So we enter the trade on our own terms. Rook a to e1. After queen takes c4, rook takes. White is keeping all the advantages of his position. Black has the bishop here, but it doesn't matter because they're both bad. This guy's still stuck, alpha zero play. This guy's stuck protecting this. Rook b8. I mean, what to do really? h3. White keeps making these tidy moves. And like I mentioned when Mamedyarov played e5, He doesn't like to wait. Reminiscent of the a5 move against Adiban. Here he plays h5. He wants to do something, but it was really hard to suggest anything for black. I mean, this is hanging. All the pawns are weak. Weak pawn, weak pawn. Isolated, and after taking on h5, this pawn is also more or less toast. King h7. And here another nice move by Giri. He played knight to e4. Some people might go rook takes h5, and it's probably still good, but it gives black some play after king g6 attacking the rook and bishop f6. At least for now, material parity is kept, and black does have the bishop pair now, slightly more active. So this is definitely a better version for black. So Giri was patient here. He played knight to e4. Great technical phase by him. King g6. And, well, actually, after knight e4, I think black resigned. And the thing is, he can't really do anything. So let's make it the variation color, because he did resign. And after, let's say a move like king g6 covering the pawn, I mean, it's just carnage. It's actually unbelievable that having the bishop pair and the material being equal, that somebody is resigning, but the position is completely lost. Let's say rook e3. This rook is simply coming to the g file. And with all these weaknesses, these pawns are just dropping off one after another. Let's say rook e7. I mean, just to do something, protect this. There's rook g3 check. Now we take on h5. We're threatening a pin here. I mean, if you're not careful, this could drop, this could drop. Monster knight here. At the top level, this is just a lost position. And Mamedyarov, he didn't want to see anymore. And that explains the resignation. So after this, like I mentioned in the Carlsen video, we have 3 leaders after 8 rounds. Giri, Mamedyarov, and Carlsen. So I'm looking forward to the last few rounds. Could prove very exciting. We also have Kramnik and Anand in pretty decent form in this tournament. And so, Wesley So isn't too far away as well, so anything can happen still. And we are awaiting further games from this tournament. So, see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.